Hello. Welcome to the third session of the FAA Flight School. Thank you for coming back. Today's session is a more advanced session that will cover the following topics. Flying around in normal everyday activities in Elite. We will be talking about boosting. We will also talk about combat and how Flight Assist Off can both help and hinder your combat abilities. And finally, we're going to talk about flying along planetary surfaces and how that can help you gain some more control over your ship. So I hope you enjoy this third and more advanced session. Let's start with our first activity, which will be a trade loop that PTN is pretty well known for. Alright, so here we're going to be doing a typical activity that folks in PTN do, which is hauling from carrier to station and station to carrier. So you're going to see me do a loop between this carrier that I'm on and the station in my new Flight Assist Off flight system that I'm building currently. So here I go ahead and target the station and get ready to take off. As I'm doing this, I'm keeping in mind all of those really important things. I'm keeping in mind my vector, my speed, my inputs, and here I go, I take off. And as I do that, I get a visual on my the system, the station that I'm moving to. And then I just go to Super Cruise here. I use boost a lot to change vector quickly. And as you get more comfortable with Flight Assist Off and boost, you'll probably start doing the same. Here I see, here we have the station slightly occluded, so I'm making use of my head look technology. I use an eye tracker to kind of move around the station, but keep an eye on, move around the planet, but keep an eye on where I am trying to go. And it's a pretty quick super cruise time here. So now I'm in the station and I'm paying attention to a couple of things as soon as I get. I'm trying to get a feel for where the mail slot is. So you can see here I showed the red dots, and those are an indicator that the mail slot is on the opposite side. So I'm looking for actually white dots. Sometimes you can see them and sometimes you can't. So look for either red or white dots to help orient you towards where the mail slot is. I'm positioning in here and I'm slowing down, and I am coming in for a nice landing. As I come in, I'm trying to get a visual on my landing pad. I do that, and as I come in towards the landing pad, I'm lining up to the number, and then I'm coming straight down. Notice I was a little further forward here, so I make some small adjustments, and I go ahead and land. Now, while you're at the station, you do whatever business you have, and I simulate that here. I'm going into the menus, I'm going around, whatever. We'll assume that that's done, and then we go ahead and launch. One thing that you're going to see as we launch here is, especially in smaller, lighter ships, there's going to be some initial velocity as you take off, and you will need to or want to counter that. I think this is a bug, but it might also be intended. So just be aware of that as you go to take off, especially in smaller ships. Leaving the mail slot here, and I'm getting an idea for where I need to go. I use a boost to vector change quickly. You can make use of your cargo scoop to vector change quickly without changing your speed too much. And here we go, we're already in Super Cruise. I like using Super Cruise Assist and the Super Cruise Assist trick, so you see me turn it on here. Again, I'm using my head look to keep the target in visual, and I'm maneuvering around. If you don't have that, then you can use the little targeting reticle. That's fine. And now I'm back into normal space with the carrier. Now, as I come in, you're going to see me use the other landing method that we talked about in the previous video. I go ahead and I request docking permission. And as I come in here, I'm going to be using that like top-down method. I don't really know how else to describe it, but it's the one the docking computer uses. So I get a visual on my landing pad here. I get some space, and I stop my movement as best I can. I come in so that I'm pointing right at the center of the landing pad. Come in nice and slowly. When I reach the numbers, I start to pitch up. Again, make fine-tune corrections, and touch down gently. So that's the carrier to station loop, and that's going to really be most of your flying for a lot of Elite Dangerous, a lot of the mundane things in Elite Dangerous. So being able to do this with Flight Assist off, you've kind of mastered like 80% of what you need to do in Flight Assist off in normal, everyday gameplay. So moving on to the next thing. All right, so let's talk about boosting in Flight Assist off and boosting in general. First of all, when you boost, there are about 4 different stages of the boost itself. The first stage is called the spooling stage. This is where you've hit boost and you're about to start going the boost speed of your ship. Then there's the stage with increased thrust and increased rotational speed. This is when your ship goes faster, and as you pitch, roll, and yaw around, you notice that you have a little bit more speed with your pitch, roll, and your yaw. Then the third stage is a stage of only increased rotational speed, so increased pitch, roll, and yaw. And then the fourth stage is a cooldown stage and a reset for the next time you can boost. All of this happens in the length of the boost as determined by the distributor on your ship. During a boost, you have some different things that you can do to change the way the boost affects your ship. So let me show you what some of those are now. The first thing is called boost bleeding. So if I boost and I don't do anything else besides steer my ship, I'll show you that now. I'm going to get all the power of my boost coming straight through my thrusters, my forward thrusters. So there it is again. And you can see how there is about 600 meters per second of speed in my boost. I'm going to come back to a stop here. Now, with some additional steps, with some other movement and other thrusting, we can steer the boost, basically. So this is called boost bleeding. What you do is you boost, and then you throttle backwards, or you thrust backwards and in a direction. This is going to negate most of the power of the boost from coming out of your forward thrusters and instead apply it to your lateral or vertical thrusters, whichever you are using. So this is an example of boost bleeding. So I still move forward a little bit, but you can see, based on my vector, that most of the movement is vertical relative to my ship. I can do the same thing to the side, and you'll notice that I actually did down and to the side there. As I boost this way, I've moved my my vector all the way to the side. So that is one way that you can control your boost a bit as you're flying around and boosting. During this time, when you boost bleed, you can still give lateral and vertical inputs to manipulate the vector of your ship. That's boost bleeding. The second technique is called scoop boosting. So this can be achieved by deploying either your cargo scoop or your landing gear. Both achieve the same thing. So, I'll show you an example of scoop boosting or gear boosting coming from a complete stop. So I boost, and then during that spool up phase, I engage the cargo scoop or landing gear. I've chosen to use landing gear recently. So I boost, and I do this, and look, my speed doesn't get anywhere near the top speed, boost speed, of my ship. It stays about half of that velocity. What doesn't change is the pitch, roll, and yaw speed that you get, the increase to those speeds that you get during a boost. So this allows you to be a lot more maneuverable for a ship of the size that you're in. So with a combination of turning and scoop boosting, I can make some really, really tight turns around my carrier here and get really, really tight in my arc around it. So how might we practice boosting, you ask? I'm going to go to a Hazraz site because I'm in a combat ship equipped for it. But you can do this in any asteroid belt or ring as long as there are asteroids there that you can fly around. Alright, and through the magic of editing, we are here in the res site. Tons of asteroids around here for us to boost around. And so what you're going to do is you're going to come to an asteroid and you're just going to start boosting around and manipulating your vector using mostly, if not only, your boost, and get used to how it feels and what you need to do to manipulate your vector and be able to control your vector using boost. You can use some cargo scoop to orbit some of the asteroids that are in the ring. And through clever pitch, roll, and yaw, you can be very nimble when flying through the asteroid belt here. And so do this as practice. And sometimes you might hit an asteroid. That's okay. It's going to help you get a better control over your ship to correct and to regain control of your ship in those situations. See, I just did it there. Maybe you want to put some pips into systems when you do that so that you aren't totally losing the integrity of your ship and eating rebuys all the time. And yeah, just play around with how the cargo scoop impacts the way that you can vector with your boost and change your direction. You can use the asteroids as a good reference point as well for your vector and for your velocity. One of the most important things throughout the boost is that you continue to pilot your ship. Don't just assume and continue to... don't just let your forward thrusters do the work of manipulating your vector while you're boosting around in a res site like this. Do some work yourself to continue keeping control of your ship and moving the way that you want to. All right, I'm here in a hazardous res site to talk a little bit about combat in Elite Dangerous and how Flight Assist Off can enhance your combat abilities. This isn't really intended to be a tutorial for how to do combat, but through the course of the video, of this section of the video, I will be talking about some things that I think about while doing combat that are just general combat principles, and how Flight Assist Off applies to them. Flying Flight Assist Off and doing combat is basically doing combat on hard mode in Elite Dangerous. So all of the things that you you need to think about for combat, things like pip management and positioning and ammo awareness and all of those kinds of things, those still apply. So you still will need to do those in your combat. The difference is now you are flying with Flight Assist Off. So you're responsible for more of your vector control, and that can be both good and bad. There are advantages and there are challenges. Some of the advantages of flying Flight Assist Off in combat: your vector is independent of the facing of your ship. So I'm going to find a ship here, and I'm going to demonstrate why this is really valuable. The ship that I'm flying is a Corsair, and it uses fixed plasma accelerators, which means that in order to fire them, you have to aim at this little reticle that's on the side. If your vector and your ship's facing were married up in Flight Assist On, for example, it would make doing this a lot more difficult for keeping the ship in your view, those kinds of things. Another thing that it's really good for, if you're not in a fixed weapon ship, is you can orbit your enemy and have tons of time on target, much better time on target than you might be able to do with flight assist on, because you don't quite have as good a control over your vector and the way that your ship is moving. So maintaining position is both easier and more difficult in some ways with flight assist off. But typically speaking, you want to be behind your enemy and slightly above them. And so you want to maintain the same facing as them. So now, for me, I am flying against a Federal assault ship here, and they are faster and more maneuverable than my Corsair. So I'm having some difficulties maintaining a good distance and matching the vector of this FAS. But as I go to engage here, I want to be in a good position. I want to make sure that my pips are set the way that I want them. So whenever I engage, I like to be either 4 pips to engines and 2 pips to weapons, or the other way around. 4 pips to weapons and 2 to engines, depending on what I need at the time. And so I get into position, and then I go to engage. And now here is where the FAS is going to get a turn on me. And you can see that their superior maneuvering ability, comparatively speaking, they were able to get a turn on me here. But that's okay. I'm in a really I'm in a really strong ship. All right, so one of the ways that we're going to practice flying and flight assist off for combat is we're going to find an enemy or a ship, and we're simply going to follow them. You don't have to engage them in combat just yet, but see if you can match their velocity, match their vector, and stay in a good, favorable position behind them as they fly around. Bonus points if they're engaged in combat with another pirate or with the System Authority vessel, and you are able to stay in a position where they're not going to be able to get a turn on you. And once you're able to match the velocity and the vector of a larger ship, like the Anaconda that I'm matching here, switch to smaller ships like a Python, for example. And you don't have to engage in combat with them. For example, this particular ship is a clean ship, so if I were to do that, I would get bounty and notoriety. But the exercise is equally as valuable. Stay with them, match their vector and their velocity, stay right along with them, and all this time you could be lighting them up and attacking them and having really good time on target. So I'll show you that with this particular Anaconda here. I'm going to get in good position. And match their vector. And I'm going to stay with them and just light them up. Now, what you can see is ships, when you start attacking them, they will start to try to turn on you to counter attack. And so this is a situation where you might need to boost a little bit to stay in really good position to where you're not going to be attacked by your enemy all the time. And just like that, our deadly anaconda is space dust. Depending on the ship that you're flying, you'll have an easier or harder time matching the velocity and vector of some of the smaller ships, like these Eagles or Vipers that I'm going over to take a look at. But they can be a good, well, I guess not. They boosted away. They jumped away. Smaller ships like that can be a good, good targets to follow and work on matching the speed, velocity, and vector of enemies that you're fighting. Another thing that's really important and a really big benefit of FA Off-Flight is pre-turning. So I'm going to show you an example of pre-turning here against this Federal dropship, assuming that they are, of course, wanted. Basically, pre-turning refers to when you are engaging with an enemy, turning early so that you can be in a good position when the enemy's ship changes vector, and you can get a good shot off on them. So I attempted a pre-turn there and was semi-successful. The pre-turn would happen now, and then I'm in a position to get a good shot off on the enemy, especially when my maneuverability is not as good as theirs is, for example. So you can see this isn't really pre-turning. Pre-turning would be this, so that I can get a shot off on them. I'm not the best at pre-turning at the moment, and this is a ship that is a little bit challenged when it comes to maneuverability. So here's a pre-turn. Well, not necessary because I took him down. But you kind of get the idea. Pre-turning is exactly what it sounds like. Turning before the ship passes you, basically, so that you can be lined up in a good, and be lined up well to hit your next shot. That's what pre-turning is. All right, so here we are on the surface of a planet for the final exercises of this particular session. What we're going to be doing is flying along the planet's surface and trying to keep the terrain HUD that you see on my screen right now visible on our HUD. So I'm going to go ahead and take off here. Now, as you're flying on planet surfaces, there is gravity to take into account. So you're going to have to counter for the force of gravity that tends to pull your ship, that wants to pull your ship down to the planet's surface. Doing this is going to get you comfortable flying on planetary surfaces for things like exobiology or other planetary exploration. It's also going to help you focus on situational and positional awareness, especially when things like what just happened happen, and you maybe are a little bit too close to the planet's surface and you knock into it a little bit. So the idea here isn't about speed. The main thing is to fly along and try to maintain as close as you can to the planet's surface. As you start to feel more comfortable with flying in this manner, I want to encourage you to play around with your speed. So go a little bit faster, raise the stakes a little bit by doing so, and also play around with the facing of your ship. So sort of like we did for the asteroid activity in the previous video, turn the facing of your ship 90 degrees in one direction, or mostly 90 degrees in one direction, and then use your positional thrusters to keep you in the right heading, and try and, as best you can, to keep the terrain in your HUD. And obviously do the same thing, but turn your ship the other direction so you get some experience with those controls. And then, once you are feeling confident with those, I want to encourage you also to give yourself a challenge and turn your ship upside down so that you are the opposite way. And you have to do the same thing, but use your downwards thrust to keep you from knocking into the surface of the planet. And obviously, your situational and positional awareness here is going to be important for not knocking into the planetary surface, especially if we're going into an area with a lot of hills, like I am just now. It can be really difficult, especially when you're upside down, just like that, not to knock into the ground. And different gravity will affect your ship in different ways. Obviously, gravity will pull you down into the surface more, so you have to use more thrust to counter it. And different thrusters are not quite the same strength. So you might find it's more difficult when you're upside down to rely on your down thrust to keep you from hitting the ground in higher gravity situations. So this is the final activity of our session today. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you found these activities beneficial. Hopefully you learned a decent amount about flight assist off in combat and boosting, and how the different stages of the boost can affect your velocity and your vector. So thank you for watching, and next week we will be talking a little bit about AX combat and how to incorporate flight assist off to your cold orbiting. So thanks for watching, everybody. Bye.